adventures all over the great state of Michigan. And the show begins now. Here's your host, Audrey Dahlgren.
Good Wednesday afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It has been quite a week so far in the sports world. A lot of drama, a lot of emotions coming through, both good and bad. And so for today's hashtag Wednesday Wisdom show, this is what I have to share with you. It's a quote from Jane Goodall. Every individual matters. Every individual has a role to play. Every individual makes a difference. I think it's important to start today's show being conscientious of that, because for the first half hour, we are going to be talking about what's happening in Tokyo with Simone Biles. It's safe to say she stunned the entire world when she decided to drop out of the Olympic team final. And now a day later, she believes it's best for her to not compete in the all-around competition to focus on her mental health. There is so much to unpack here and discuss, but we'll start with how it all transpired, because I think a lot of people are confused about this, and it's understandable. Tokyo is on a completely different time frame as we are. When it's nighttime there, it's daytime here. When it's daytime here, it's nighttime there. So some people are sleeping. And so anyway, there's just kind of a lot to unpack here. And, you know, I had a lot of friends too that texted me yesterday and they were like, what's happening? And so let's just start here. So if you have not watched or seen her vault from Tuesday's Olympic team final, it was the very first rotation. I highly recommend you take a look at it, because this is what sparked it all, and it'll give you a better understanding. So this event, like all others in the sport of gymnastics, is incredibly dangerous. One wrong move and she could forever be paralyzed, or heaven forbid, kill herself. And that is not an exaggeration due to the level of difficulty of the skills she is performing. It seems like, okay, that's a bit much, Audrey. Well, no, it's not, because the amount of depth that goes into, like I said, what her performance and the skills that she's performing, it's off the charts. It is very dangerous. So when she pushed off the vaulting table on Tuesday, she had planned to perform a 2.5 twisting vault. But you can see midway through her rotation that she gets lost and doesn't know where she is. And as a result, she did a 1.5 twist instead. Afterwards, she literally said, I had no idea where I was in the air. Now, by no means am I in the same category as Simone Biles. She is the most decorated gymnast of all time. She's known as the GOAT, and she's earned it because no one can perform the skills she can perform. By no means have I ever performed the skills she has performed. But I will say this. As a co-ed cheerleader at Michigan State, I have done my fair share of flipping upside down. And if you don't know where you are in the air, it is terrifying. If you lose your focus, it is terrifying, because your body has a split second to do what it's supposed to do midair. And if it doesn't, you're in trouble. Granted, doing a back tuck or a round off back tuck, back handspring is nowhere near as difficult as the fulls she performs, but it is relative. A lot of what Biles does too is from muscle memory. It's why it looks so effortless and why everyone is in awe when she flips through the air. For her, just an example of the skills that she's performing, a double twisting double tuck dismount off beam and a triple twisting double tuck on floor, which are the world's hardest skills, are the equivalent of you and I getting on our bikes to go for a bike ride. It's that easy for her. However, Tuesday it was not that easy for her, and she knew right away something was off. Athletes of her caliber, a veteran of the sport, have a sense of awareness about their bodies and mind that a lot of people just cannot relate to. And so after she dropped out of the team final, she spoke to that awareness as well as some other issues pertaining to mental health and stress that led to her decision. And we're going to listen to a compilation of those responses now.
Sorry. No, no injury, thankfully, and that's why I took a step back because I didn't want to do something silly out there and get injured. So I thought it was best if these girls took over and did the rest of the job, which they absolutely did. They're Olympic silver medalists now, and they should be really proud of themselves for how well they did last minute having to go in. And it's been really stressful, this Olympic Games. I think just as a whole, not having an audience, there are a lot of different variables going into it. It's been a long week. It's been a long Olympic process. It's been a long year. So just a lot of different variables, and I think we're just a little bit too stressed out. But we should be out here having fun, and sometimes that's not the case.
Yes, please.
I just felt like it would be a little bit better to take a back seat, work on my mindfulness, and I knew that the girls would do an absolutely great job, and I didn't want to risk the team a medal for kind of my screw-ups because they've worked way too hard for that. So I just decided that those girls need to go in and do the rest of the competition. So when you guys talk
The question.
Yeah, we're going to take it a day at a time. I know tomorrow that we have a half day, or at least the morning off. So it'll be a good mental rest, and so we'll take it from there.
Struggling with mental health issues?
Yeah, I say put mental health first, because if you don't, then you're not going to enjoy your sport and you're not going to succeed as much as you want to. So it's okay sometimes to even sit out the big competitions to focus on yourself, because it shows how strong of a competitor and person that you really are, rather than just battle through it.
Out of all those series of clips, the last one was, I think, one of the most important ones because, as I mentioned before, kind of going into it, a lot of what she does is from muscle memory. She has a great awareness of her body, of her mind. And for her to come forward and to acknowledge that does speak to just really how in tune she is in her sport. And people need to pay attention to that. Now, I know that she is the face of the U.S. women's gymnastics team. And you could also argue that she's the face of the Olympics for the United States, besides swimmer Katie Ledecky. She's won 4 Olympic gold medals, 5 total Olympic medals, and that barely scratches the surface of what she's been able to accomplish from an athletic standpoint. It's one reason, though, too, that she has received a ton of backlash for her decision. I mean, there's people who are on one end of the spectrum who absolutely adore what she did and are sticking up for her and agree with it. And then there's the complete other side of it where people are just absolutely ripping her for her decision to drop out. And Piers Morgan is one of those people who has ripped her. Kind of, and this is what he said in quote, "Are mental health issues now the go-to excuse for any poor performance in elite sport? What a joke. Just admit you did badly, made mistakes, and will strive to do better next time. Kids need strong role models, not this nonsense." In my opinion, for what it's worth, when he says kids need strong role models, not this nonsense, she is being a strong role model because she's acknowledging the fact that she's not okay. And it also goes back to, like I said, her sport is incredibly dangerous. So would you rather have her go out there, suck it up, and then she's paralyzed from the waist down? Then how would you feel? The other thing about this is that in being a strong role model, I think now athletes are finally speaking their truth. And it's pretty refreshing. Actually, it's really refreshing. I've always said this, and I'll continue to say it. Coaches, athletes, even at the level that Biles is at, or Tom Brady, or Michael Jordan, or LeBron James, they are human beings just like you and me. They experience every emotion just like you and I. And honestly, they experience it tenfold due to spotlight and the scrutiny that they are under. And people will argue too, well, that's what they get paid millions of dollars to do. Yes, and I'm guilty. I've said that a number of times. But not when it comes to mental health. Everybody's going through something internally, and some people do a damn good job of hiding it. I know a lot of people who do a great job of hiding those emotions of what's going on internally. And Biles, too, has had to live through one of the most traumatizing experiences in her sport with the sexual abuse that was brought on by Larry Nassar. She's the only survivor who is still competing, and in an interview with Time before the Olympics began, she admitted that the postponement of the games from last year weighed on her, as it would mean another year of dealing with the USAG and what the survivors feel is the organization's lack of transparency and accountability. And so you add that into the high stress pressure situation, being the face of the team, being the face of the United States. And then you go out there and you don't know where you're at in the air. It makes perfect sense as to why she wouldn't want to do it. And I do hear both sides. I get both sides. But I do think that the criticism in saying it's a joke, that's not the side that I'm on when it comes to this topic. And Alex, after hearing all that, where do you stand?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. That type of backlash. Well, first of all, I'm in the boat of if you have mental health problems and those are like you're self-aware about that, I'm totally supportive for that, because especially when it comes to mental health, it's very, very new. We're still really kind of learning on how this all works. So to come out and just, point fingers and saying, no, that it's not because of that. Like that's what drives me nuts is when people come out, you haven't lived a day in Simone's shoes or a day in her life. And to come out and just have this, this super, super strong opinion towards why she's actually doing what she's doing. It's just, you can't look any more ignorant and like more of an ass, in my opinion. Like you don't know what's going on in between her ears. And like you said, she's the poster child of the Olympics. And I think that's the main reason why she's getting that backlash. If she was the number 3 or number 4 person on that team and she made that decision, nobody says anything. So don't like let's just make sure we're not misguided with what are you really angry about? Mm-hmm. And it drives me crazy.
100%. And I do get the pressure point in terms of this is what she should expect. This is what she gets paid to do. She knows she's going to be in the limelight. This is, what's expected of her. But at the same time, it's completely different. And people were trying to compare her to Tom Brady all day yesterday. Well, Tom Brady doesn't fold in the biggest moments of his life when Super Bowl's on the line, et cetera, et cetera. Tom Brady is not flipping upside down, doing these incredibly difficult stunts in a performance like that, where, like I said, she could kill herself if she does not know where she's at in the air.
And I don't disagree with that at all. But that, even beside that that's just an added reason for me. But I mean, even if she wasn't risking her life and she felt like she was not mentally capable of competing, I think you just leave it at that. I don't know. I can't stand when people that don't have any idea of what's going on between their ears, have never spoken with this person, never lived a day in their lives, and then you come out and just have all these predetermined reasons of why she did what she did because you're pissed off that you didn't win the gold medal for, the Olympic team as a U.S. citizen. I mean, it drives me nuts. I feel like people, are always looking for reasons to be mad and reasons to lash out, and this is just one of them. So they latch on and throw fuel on the fire. It just, I don't know. That's just where I don't even. I mean, yeah, like you said with the Tom Brady comparisons, yeah, he's not flipping upside down, and that's an added reason as to why maybe you should back off. But even with that even thrown out the window, I still don't think that the backlash that she's getting is warranted.
It's not. And I think it is too, as I mentioned a little bit ago. It's even better, I think, from a role model standpoint, that she did come forward and she did say that mentally she was not okay to do it. How many times, I mean, at least from, my experiences and from listening to other athletes and their experiences, there's been so many times where a coach has told you, suck it up, push through, you're fine. And there are certain situations now when it comes, I do believe that when it comes to an injury per se, a physical injury, you can push through that. I do believe. I'm in the portion where, or with people where, you know, if you have a physical injury to a certain extent, and you know you can walk still, or you can run, or you can throw, or you can, still compete in that aspect, I think it's fine. But mentally, oh my gosh, if you are not focused, it's hard to push through that. And you know, I was thinking about this too when kind of writing all of this and thinking about everything that she's going through. And when you're immersed in sport and you're, you know, trying to be the best, you do push through, and you push all your feelings, you push any, you know, negative emotion or doubt, you push it to the side. And a lot of times that is what separates the average athlete from the great superior athlete, is that they're able to compartmentalize that in their mind. But, you know, I just think that there's a point, and I think she reached her breaking point, and on the biggest stage too. And, you know, she didn't, and also too, that is her being a good teammate as well, with the self-awareness, knowing that she's not capable and that she could, more than likely, she could hinder, you know, the opportunity for the women to win a medal, because that's the lowest score that she's ever received in her vault that she's done in her career.
Yeah, and you were touching up on like the difference between the mental and the physical injury and where you stand on that. And I think a big reason for that is we have so much more knowledge about physical injuries than we do with mental illnesses and mental injuries, if you will. I mean, like it's black and white. So I mean, like you said, like you can play through, and we know exactly what type of injuries you can play through, and what's not going to make, you know, have further complications down the road, where maybe if you have a slightly sprained ankle, you can push through that because it's not going to make it worse, and we know that. You can, but if you have a torn ACL, you're not going to be vaulting, because we know the complications of that, and we know that you're not able. But with mental health, we don't know. It's not black and white like a physical injuries, and for the old heads to come in and say, you know, well, back in my day we would have just, you know, we suck it up, you know, well, that didn't really work very well, because obviously we're in an era right now where mental illness is at an all-time high. I mean, you have suicide rates that are higher than they've ever been. So obviously that mentality and that mindset wasn't exactly, you know, the right one or the perfect one, or by any means. So yeah, just because that's the way they did it in the past, and maybe that's the way that you did it, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the best approach. And I think we're finally starting to learn that. As I mean, for hundreds of years, I mean, we've been perfecting the physical science and the physical health science, and really only worrying about that. But it's just kind of now recently that we're putting emphasis on the mental health, which, I mean, you really think about it with how the body works. I mean, the brain is 99% of everything that functions within your body, and the physical parts are just being controlled by your brain. So why would we neglect the engine of the body and only worry about the parts, whereas it really should be the other way around? And I think we're just kind of finally, and we don't know a lot about it. And to say that she's not mentally or she's mentally weak, you cannot be an Olympic athlete, especially a star Olympic athlete in any sport. And I don't care what it is, in badminton or anything, by being mentally weak. You just do not get to that point in your career by being mentally weak. So it's for you to be not you, but for someone to be sitting on their couch, you know, watching the Olympics, scrolling through Twitter, eating a bag of potato chips, and screaming at the television because Simone Biles decided that she's not able to compete. I think if Simone Biles decides that she's not able to compete, guy on the chair should probably just, you know, accept that, because obviously she's the one that's standing up there competing for an Olympic medal, not you. Right.
It's easy to say when you're eating bonbons from your couch.
Exactly.
To criticize. That goes with anything in life.
Yeah.
But it's been amplified with this situation for sure. And the other part that I feel for her teammates on is, of course, she's the leader, she's the voice. So they also listen to her when she comes forward, and they know she's serious when she says this and she says she cannot compete. But what I do feel bad for is that the other women who are competing on the team, all of this has been all about Biles not competing and not what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's taking away from the U.S. team and its abilities and just how good these athletes are. And that's not fair either for the press and for people in general, to the public, to just be solely focused on what she's doing. These other athletes are performing. I mean, they still won a silver medal without her. And that is something that, they should be proud of. I mean, obviously for years, since 2011, the U.S. women's gymnastics team has been known for its dominance. That's why they were selected as the favorite. Also with Biles, why they were selected as the favorite, because she is the most decorated gymnast of all time. But, you need to also recognize that these other athletes are there, and some of them are there for the first time competing in an Olympics.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is probably it's more difficult on Simone than anyone else. And to assume, to be so ignorant to just assume that this star Olympic athlete who's been training for this stuff her entire life. I mean, like, this is literally, this is what they do. And to think that they, just because, 4 years of preparation and because that she just had a bad routine or didn't think that she was, perfect in her last routine, that's why she quit because of that. Like, come on. Like, that's the assumption you're going to jump on, is the most unlikely one, and the one that deep down isn't true. But it's just really, you need to assess, what are you really angry about? Right. And it just drives me crazy. I can't. I mean, I'm not surprised, but I'm disappointed.
Yeah, disappointed is a good word, because you'd think by now, but you know what? I don't know. You'd think by now that after everything that we have been through as in the world this last year and a half, you'd think that people would be a little bit more understanding and forgiving. And how many guests, there's been so many people that have come on this show, other shows, and have talked about the ramifications of what the COVID year did mentally for a lot of people. And they realized a lot within that year. And also, too, you would think that people would be more understanding after coming off the year that we're coming off of.
No kidding.
But they're not. And that's what's disappointing.
Yeah. No questions.
The other thing, too, I said it earlier, and I'm going to say it one more time before we go to break, because we've got some great stuff to talk about in the second half hour. Because, it is the first day of training camp for the Detroit Lions in their new regime. And our Ian Kress is in Detroit. And so we're going to talk to him about all of the things that have transpired down there in the D this morning and this afternoon. It's a great day down there. But one more thing before I want to just point this back out one more time, is just the safety issue. If anything, if you can be upset at the fact that she dropped out. You can be upset at the fact, well, that's what she's there to do from a pressure standpoint. She needs to perform, and she's expected to perform under pressure. I get that. But just consider the safety aspect. Would you rather see her be honest and upfront and come forward and state and tell you straight to your face and to the entire world that she's not okay, rather than to have her go through with it and be paralyzed?
Yeah, and what's the most infuriating is people will sit there and listen to that and say, "Well, no, that's not right. Like, you're not in danger." You know what I mean? Like, it just drives me crazy. And it's like, who would know better than the greatest gymnast in the world that she's not capable or not in the right mindset to do what she does every single day? I think if there's anyone to give the benefit of the doubt to, it would be her.
Absolutely. And it is scary when you don't know where you are in the air.
Yeah.
Very much so. So just keep that in mind as you continue to think about this or process this. And as I mentioned, we're going to take a break. But when we come back, we will be joined by Ian Kress from Detroit at Lions Training Camp.
Thinking of a new air conditioning unit for your home? Hi, Peggy Doty with Doty Mechanical. A new Carrier high-efficiency AC unit will lower your energy usage and increase your home comfort. Current Carrier Cool Cash offers and available utility rebates mean your savings have never been better.
Call Doty Mechanical today at 327-7777 or visit us at dotymechanical.com for your free estimate. For heating and cooling, the names to know, Doty Mechanical and Carrier, turn to the experts.
Waze is going to warn you about traffic jams and detours before you get into your car. The Google-owned navigation app is revamping the pre-drive screen, and now you'll see alternate routes, traffic levels, real-time reports, and toll info, not to mention an explanation of why Waze chose a specific route. For those in need of a rugged phone, the maker of Nokia-branded devices is out with a military-grade smartphone designed to withstand intense environmental conditions. HMD Global says the Nokia XR20 can resist damage from scratches and drops from 6 feet, can be submerged in water for up to an hour, and endure extreme temperatures. XR20 starts at a price of $540 in the U.S. TikTok is trying to promote niceness. A new pop-up will alert you if you're about to post a comment the company deems harmful. Hosts can now assign a moderator before they start a stream, letting them focus on the show instead of blocking and muting trolls. And you can now add up to 200 entries to the keyword filter. Tech Report, Larry Olson, NBC News Radio.
Live across the Great Lakes State, you're connected to Michigan's most engaging and influential radio and television program, Michigan's Big Show, starring Michael Patrick Shields.
Great to be with you, Michael Patrick. You're the show I would want to be on. Forget those other ones.
Michael Patrick, it's always a pleasure to be on the air with the King of the Airwaves. Thanks for having me on again.
That's a very good question.
Those are all great questions. Good morning.
Thank you. Michigan's Michael Patrick Shields.
Trust matters, especially when it's your money. Mark and Jay at North Coast Wealth Management work hard to build a relationship of trust by providing thoughtful, objective guidance and placing your interests first. Invest with knowledgeable financial advisors who are on your side. Call today and tell them you're a friend of the show for a no-cost, no-obligation consultation. 248-626-2000 and ask for Mark or Jay. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC.
Jack Ebling here with Forest Acres course manager Brian Harris. Brian, it's just about time for some new product. You've got them all here at Acres and terrific club fitting.
Yeah, we've got some of the best club fitting in the state of Michigan. We utilize the TrackMan technology with all the major brands. So if you're looking for clubs for yourself or that special person in your life, then we're the place to go.
Lots of different manufacturers.
Lots of different ones from all the major brands, Titleist, Callaway, Ping, and more. So please come see us for your club fitting today.
Stop out at Forest Acres. Take care of your golf game.
I'm Tony Cuthbert with your Spotlight Sports Update. The Tigers snapped a 4-game losing streak with a 6-5 win over the Twins in 11 innings last night. Eric Haas smashed a grand slam to tie the game in the 9th inning, and Miguel Cabrera had an RBI single in the 11th to put Detroit ahead for good. Willie Peralta gets the start for the Tigers against Twins lefty Jay Happ in this afternoon's rubber match. The Lions begin training camp today with a practice at their Allen Park facility. General Manager Brad Holmes and head coach Dan Campbell are in place for their first season with the team, while Jared Goff takes over under center for Matthew Stafford. Practice will be open to the public this year, beginning with a session for season ticket holders on Sunday. And Damian Lillard had 21 points, including 7 3-pointers, and Devin Booker had 16 as Team USA beat Iran 120-66. The U.S. will play the Czech Republic on Saturday.
Welcome back to the Audrey Dahlgren Show.
You want to win, don't you? Well, I think I'd really rather try to beat him honestly.
The Spotlight Radio Network.
For football fans across the state, Detroit Lions are back. Today was the opening day of training camp in Allen Park, and that's why we're bringing in Ian Kress now, because he made the trek down there nice and early this morning to be in place for Dan Campbell's first press conference at 8 a.m. E, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Can't complain. The sun is shining, and at Lions practice facility, grass is green. Good day.
Tell everybody what time that you woke up today to get down to Allen Park.
Well, I had to wake up at like 4:30 because I had to go from Brighton to Lansing, then Lansing to Allen Park. So it was a lot of driving, but hey, I feel good. I'm not tired or anything like that.
Right. Hashtag, as we say, we don't get tired.
Don't got time for that.
Right. Well, so obviously brand new regime for the Detroit Lions. I'm sure that was one topic of conversation that came up. But secondly, just tell us about Dan Campbell's press conference and how he opened the day and what he had to say to everybody about embarking on this new journey in Detroit.
Yeah, well, it wasn't as intense as his introductory press conference was when he talked about biting kneecaps off. So it wasn't at that level, but it was still pretty good. He walked in and told everyone good morning, and it was kind of awkward for a second. He just kind of was silent, and we're like, uh-oh, is he done talking? But then he kept talking, and he talked about the vaccination or the team's vaccination status. Said the team's at about 80% with everyone. So that's good news. And then he got into just the excitement level of being back out with the team and having the opportunity now to have a normal training camp. He said he didn't get much sleep last night, which I think is expected for someone in his position. But, yeah, he was just excited to get out, and he was ready to hit the ground running, really.
Did they have fans there today? Like, is it open to the public today?
No, it's just media and the team and just media.
Okay. So, obviously, not being able to sleep makes a lot of sense because it is day one. He is an intense guy. What did you notice maybe from him, from his coaching style, when the portion that you were able to film or be a part of and noticing how he walks around the field and interacts with the players? Did anything stand out from that front?
He just really walked around as they were stretching. I feel like that's what most coaches do, but he really was interacting with the players. You could see him talking with a good amount of them. As he would walk by, he would have a conversation, go to someone else, but you could tell that they respected him. Even with the interviews after practice was done, you could tell a lot of the guys are happy that he's here because he just brings a different energy. As DeAndre Swift, the running back, said, it feels different than where things were at last year. Obviously, COVID was had an effect on last year, but it's just the coaching, he said, just feels different and it feels better, feels right.
Now, that could be a pretty optimistic thing for Lions fans, but, how much, too, was talked about or how much was brought up about, the expectations around the program and how, there always seems to be this high energy and all this great allure in the beginning, but, how are they going to make a difference, when it really counts midway through the season, end of the season, trying to compete for a championship per se?
Well, they're just going to try to bring that intensity every day, like Campbell, like the type of coach he is. He's going to try to bring that out in the guys, and he really wants them to just cherish the moment and just cherish this opportunity right now because he said when he started that, today's group, this won't be the same group in a couple months because, they're going to cut some guys and all this. So he just wants them to really take in the opportunity, and I feel like that's going to carry over into the season. When they start playing games, it's just guys are really going to start to appreciate the opportunity they're given to go out there and play for the Honolulu Blue and just go out there and try to, compete. I think they know that they would like to think they have a shot. I think a lot of people probably might say otherwise, but I think they're not looking at it like that. They're not looking at who they got in their division or anything like that. They're just going to focus on themselves and try to get better. He did say that a lot of the guys have gotten stronger, so I think that's something that, as for us, we cover Michigan State. We've seen a lot of pictures going viral of guys from last year to this year and how much bigger they look and stronger, and that's kind of something he brought up, how guys are getting stronger and bigger. So I think that's encouraging for a new coaching staff coming in and really working with the guys.
Yeah, what else did DeAndre Swift have to say today?
So he just talked about how his off season was and just how he did get stronger and how he also talked about the running back they brought in from Green Bay. I think it's Jamal Williams is his name. So it's like he talks about the 1-2 punch and how, you know, Jamal is like this energetic guy who really likes to laugh and dance and joke around, and it's like they complement each other very well, because Swift is kind of more of a straightforward, not really going to show a lot of emotion and just kind of do his work. But at the same time, you know, they kind of both have their different ways of approaching things, but they get the job done. And I think that was something he really liked, working with a guy like Jamal, and just having, you know, he was another guy that said he was really impressed with Campbell and his staff so far.
And who else spoke today, too, from a player standpoint?
Yeah, so Michael Brockers, they got him in a trade from the Rams this offseason, a separate trade outside of the Matthew Stafford trade. He spoke, and he was actually a guy that Campbell seemed to really love so far. He mentioned that yesterday when they were doing their conditioning test, Brockers was done, and he was just, you know, kind of like talking trash to a lot of the guys that were still competing, and that's something Campbell really likes. He likes to see that, and that was something that Brockers just mentioned, how that's just his personality. He likes to really kind of see what limit he can push guys to, because he thinks that can help them. And I think he's an intense guy that's really going to help the defense. I think that was a much need this offseason, is fixing the defense that was so poor last year. But he's definitely a guy that seems like he's not afraid of just, you know, coming in, being the new guy, and just kind of going about his business. He's really going to try to be a leader, it seems like, based on what Campbell said and what Brockers had mentioned.
From what you're saying, too, I'm kind of gathering from all of this is that it seems to be pretty lighthearted and kind of going back to the roots of when players started to begin to even play the game, in a sense of they had fun doing it. Do you feel as though that you could sense it being sort of fun for them to or like them remembering that aspect of it, to bringing them back to why they initially got involved in the game?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you could see them as they're walking off. Obviously, it's the first day of training camp, so they're going to be excited. But you could just tell there's a little more pep in their step, and they just had a good feel to themselves. And really, I mean, during practice, you could tell guys are focused. They were listening to the coaches, so that means, you know, they understand and they respect these new guys that have come in and really try to teach them, you know, a new playbook in a way. But these guys, the Lions, they understand that, you know, this is a coaching staff that was brought in for a reason, to fix the problems they had last year. And they were, when I was watching at least, they were very intense with what they did. But once they got done, they were all just kind of laughing with each other, joking as they walked back into the locker room. So it was a good vibe in a way, just from, you know, the first day. Obviously, the chemistry is going to continue to grow, but it was good to see a lot of the guys connecting already.
And then you mentioned the trade. Obviously, not the second one we'll go into, with Matthew Stafford going to LA, and now Jared Goff coming in and stepping under center in Detroit. What was his body language like today on the first day of training camp, and what were some of the takeaways that you have from just seeing him out there and being a part of day one?
Yeah, well, I mean, he looked like he really fit in. I mean, he was kind of just, in a way, going about his own business, but he was, you know, working with the quarterbacks, obviously. But he was a guy that, you know, he didn't talk with the media today, but DeAndre Swift, obviously a running back on the offense with him, he was asked about him, and he said he loves him. He said he loves working with him already, says there's good chemistry there, and he thinks that it's going to be a good, you know, quarterback-running back duo coming into the season. It was kind of hard to tell exactly how maybe he was feeling, but it looked like he fit in. Obviously, this isn't L.A. This is Allen Park in Michigan, but, you know, I think he's ready for this role is what it seemed like. Campbell didn't get too much into detail when it comes to Goff, but it seemed like he was in good spirits, and from what the players and his teammates were saying, they were ready to accept him as their new leader in a way, you know, and the successor of Matthew Stafford.
It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out with Goff, just because of how long Matthew Stafford was in Detroit. And so, you know, I guess another point is, I mean, do you feel that, you know, that resurgence of just that new blood being in there with him?
Oh, yeah. I mean, those are obviously big shoes to fill. Matthew Stafford being here for as long as he was, and just, you know, taking over when he was drafted, a 0-16 team, and, you know, eventually taking them to the playoffs. And, there's high expectations for the quarterback position here after what Stafford did. So I'm sure Goff is aware of that, but I think, Goff has also been to a Super Bowl. He has plenty of experience. He was also a former number 1 overall pick, so it's not like they traded for some bum. They
right.
they got a guy that knows what he's doing, and I think that's something that the Lions like. That's why they traded for him. That's why Brad Holmes drafted him and then acquired him in the trade years later to come here and play for Detroit.
Did you see anyone like Brad Holmes at the training camp today? I believe Martha Ford stopped by.
I did see her riding around in a cart, but
okay.
I didn't see Brad Holmes. He might have been here, but it was kind of hard with all the people around to maybe spot him out. But
yeah,
I definitely saw Ford. He was riding around in her little Ford, whatever you call it, vehicle.
Right, her Ford golf cart, essentially.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a golf cart. Well, great. Good stuff there. And tell people, too, then, what you're going to be working on or doing for tonight. You won't have a story at 6, but at 11, you'll be reporting, and you'll have a great story to share.
Yeah, well, at 11, I'll probably just get into, the guys' excitement about being out here and why it's, something that they've been waiting for a long time, obviously not really having it last year, but also just their excitement to be out here with the new regime, with Campbell, and to just be out here and play football. And for 6, we'll get into more on the Brockers thing with, his personality. Campbell will talk about that a little bit, and Brockers as well. And then you're also going to hear from Campbell on really why he didn't get a lot of sleep last night. He obviously is excited, but, there's a lot going on in his head of just what he's thinking about heading into his first training camp with the Lions. And that's something that he's going to dive into at 6 on Channel 6. And so, it's going to be some good stuff.
I'm really disappointed that he didn't come out with the fire and the energy that he had in his introductory press conference. I was hoping for that'd be hard to top, though, biting the kneecaps. That would be hard to top.
Yeah, that's the thing. He set the bar so high. So, it was 8 a.m., so maybe he was a little tired. He walked in and was like, "Oh, good morning, everyone. Good to see you all." Because obviously it was all on Zoom beforehand. So he was excited to have the media in person today, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a whole new world that we have to get adjusted to again, just because we have been doing Zoom for so long. So it is kind of interesting when you see people in person for the first time.
Oh, you ain't kidding. Yeah, this is my first press conference probably in over 2, well, maybe not 2 years, over a year definitely. And I was like, oh, how do I plug in the cord here? What do I do?
Right.
How do I set the camera up? I forgot all of that, but I figured it out.
Well, I'm glad you figured it out. So that's good.
The audio sounds good.
Awesome. And then going off that too real quick, yeah, it looked like the tent that he was in, it was looked like a party tent kind of, just because there were lights and I don't know, I just found that to be interesting.
Yeah, it's like a wedding tent basically. I'm looking at it right now. It's basically, it's literally like a tent you would have at a wedding.
Okay.
With you can look from the outside in, and yeah, it's just something they're doing. I think it's a COVID protocol. They don't want the media inside of their facility, so they're doing it outside of the facility. And obviously, you want to kind of maybe eliminate the sun as much as possible, or the rain potentially on a day not like today. But yeah, it's kind of a funny setup, that's for sure.
Yeah, and one more. So I just keep thinking of things. So one other thing is the vaccination issue. So you said you had mentioned that they're about 80%, the team is about 80% vaccinated?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
What else did Campbell have to say when it came to vaccination rates and how they're going to be approaching maybe COVID protocols for the season?
Yeah, well, he encourages it. I think that's what a lot of coaches want right now, especially after the news last week of, if an unvaccinated player gets COVID and forces the team to miss a game, then, they're not going to be able to make it up. So I think that's something that's just encouraged right now. And actually, DeAndre Swift, who we talked to, he said that after that ruling came out, he got his vaccine because he didn't want to be the guy that really took away the team's chance to compete and make money and all this and that. And he also said because he's not from here, he travels a lot, so he figured, it was best for him to get it. for himself, but also for the team. So I think that's something you might see the numbers start going up as, more and more players are realizing, okay, I don't want to take away from my team's opportunity to compete and win and have a chance to, to make the playoffs or win the Super Bowl. So I think that's something that you might see more of. There's more players starting to get it, so that number from 80 might go up to 90 maybe in the next month or so. You never know. But, yeah, I thought that was interesting from Swift saying that new ruling that came out that he's like, okay, I got to get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that as you just spoke to, you're going to see a lot of players across the league kind of follow that same suit just because they are not going to be able to make up those games. It potentially could lead to a forfeit. So after everything that happened last year, a lot of teams are not going to be wanting to have to forfeit games because of a COVID issue. So, all right. Well, E, that is great stuff. Really looking forward to everything for tonight at 6 and 11 on WLNS. And drive safe, Backley, to Lansing, okay?
All right. Hopefully traffic's not too bad.
Right. Yeah, let's hope.
All right. I'll see you later.
All right. Bye. One thing about that COVID vaccination that's important to point out, too, is that Ron Rivera is really frustrated right now, with his team because they are one of the lowest when it comes to vaccination rates. They have one of the lowest numbers at around 50%, I believe. And so he's autoimmune, he has an immune deficiency. And so he's really frustrated right now with his team that they're one of the lowest, they have one of the lowest vaccination rates in the league.
Yeah, that's slightly concerning for sure.
But good stuff from Ian there. I think a lot of people, are very excited. And day one is always like that. There's a lot of fluff, is what we like to call it in the TV business, just because it's more about getting back on the field. And, they don't get into the serious, hardcore, well, tell me how you're going to change this on day one. But I wanted to hear from Jared Goff today, but they're probably going to hold out on him.
Yeah, he's probably going to be the last to come. Save the best for last.
Yeah, right. A lot of allure, a lot of intrigue, though, when it comes to Jared Goff, just because, as, Ian was mentioning, it's not like they traded Stafford away to the Rams and got some slouch quarterback. He has a lot of experience. He has playoff experience. And I trust, I think Brad Holmes, in just his short amount of time, has made a huge difference in the Lions program.
Yeah, no question. You can kind of feel. It's kind of across the board for. I know Detroit sports are down, and we had obviously a little stretch with Michigan State football. They weren't at their best, but it definitely has a feeling like all of these teams are kind of something's starting to brew. With Michigan State football, and then obviously with the Detroit Lions, and then you have the Detroit Pistons drafting number 1 tomorrow, and everything that they've done in the last year. And even the Detroit Tigers are starting to give out some glimpses of hope as well, and with some building pieces. So, yeah, it's been a dark few, maybe 5 or so years for Detroit sports fans and even some of the college fans as well. But I think the light's starting to peak out at the end of the tunnel. I think we're going to have some success in the next 3 or 4 years, whoever that may be. But I think it's coming.
You can see it build. You can feel it building for sure. And Dan Campbell, I think back to the interview process and when Sheila Ford Hamp was describing why they hired him. And a lot of it had to do with the energy and the enthusiasm that he brings to the table. And I think that he is so different from that standpoint from Matt Patricia. Mm-hmm. And because and that's why I kind of asked Ian that question about practice and how he was roaming around the field when it came to, checking on players or just kind of what he was doing when he was out there, how he was interacting with them. Because in the instances that I was at, in Detroit and would go to training camp practices when Matt Patricia was there, is that he would, granted, he was hurt for some of it. Remember when he broke his foot?
Yeah.
And he had to wear that boot?
Yeah.
Well, so, and he had like a
He'd trip on the way to the fridge or something.
Yeah, he had a gator that he would ride around practice and stuff. But like Dan Campbell is getting down, doing down-ups with his team. So, that is why I was asking Ian to maybe give us a more inside look at that portion, because it's so much different than Matt Patricia.
Yeah,
and the one thing too that I literally, and I know it, a lot of people were not fans of this, is that, the reaction too is like, you were just like always trying to like poke to see, like, can we just get some type of reaction out of you on the sideline? When it comes to something good or bad. And
You're talking about Patricia?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I think that this was such a great hire. I mean, it remains to be seen how great of an on-field coach Dan Campbell is. I mean, obviously he's got the NFL pedigree and things like that, but to be able to navigate yourself through an NFL game, that is important. But from just the same aspect that you were touching on, they needed a culture and a chemistry shift more than they needed anything else. Because from the rumblings that we were hearing out of the Detroit camp with Patricia and the coaching staff, and the disconnect there, and almost borderline hatred with one another, that needed to be the first thing that gets shifted. And I think from what we're hearing, what we're seeing from Dan Campbell, he's like that perfect guy. I mean, he's not maybe full on rah, but he's a player's coach, and he's going to get players having fun and wanting to play for the Lions as opposed to themselves. Whereas Matt Patricia, from all accounts, that was his biggest weakness. So that's why I love this hire so much, and I loved it right from the get-go, because that's what they needed, I thought, more than anything, was just a revamp in energy and chemistry and things like that. And it seems like that's going great right now, and that he's going to be that type of coach. I
like what Ian had to say, too, about how they're kind of like talking trash to each other at practice.
Yes. I love that, and I know that type of dynamic, because I've had coaches that are very similar. I mean, and it's not really trash. It's kind of almost like that senior to freshman kind of picking on you, but I love you because I'm doing it. And there's only you have to establish first, though, a certain type of level of respect for one another before you can kind of take it to that level. And if that is the case, and they're having fun, jawing on the field and stuff like that, that's great news. That means that the players honestly respect them, because you don't do that with a coach that you don't respect. Even you might even like them, but if you don't respect them, then you can't take that type of those types of shots if you don't think that they have their best interest for you.
Yeah, and it opens up to it speaks to the camaraderie, the trust. You mentioned the respect, and it kind of just sets the tone for they do have that openness with one another, and that's where you see teams really strive, is because they're comfortable with each other. And as you mentioned too, like that senior to freshman, jabbing back and forth, but you do it because you want to not only get the most out of each other, but in a sense too, like I think that's a great way to build a culture, because if you can be sarcastic with people too, but they also know you're serious.
Well, and especially in a sport and a profession that's so intense, it's a nice way to kind of lighten the mood in certain instances and keep because I mean, at the end of the day, you're still playing a game. Like that. I mean, obviously, it turns into a job, and it's a career and things like that. But you still have to have that level of fun and that the desire of the reason why you started playing the game in the first place. That has to kind of still be there in order for you to be the best that you can.
Yeah, and I'm glad that from what Ian said too, is that they're kind of bringing that back, that fun, remembering this is why we started playing the sport when we were younger, because we enjoyed it and there was a love for it. So any time you do something out of love, it will never fail you at all.
Agreed.
So that's how we'll end. That might be the ending of the #Wednesday Wisdom Show. Anytime you do something out of love, it will never fail you. We'll end it there. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we have so much to get to tomorrow when it comes to the NBA draft, so that'll be a lot of fun as well.